welcome to Leap Taken. Here at Leap Taken, I talk about all things witchy, craft related, law of attraction, manifesting, esoteric, and everything else in between. And today, I'm going to be doing a couple different things. So what you're watching is me doing some prep for some spells and ritual work that I'm doing for myself and for others. But I want to have a conversation while this plays. If you get some ideas from what you're seeing, awesome. If you also get to thinking a little bit differently about this subject, even better. So let's talk about the witch to Christianity / white supremacy pipeline. Yes, I'm going there. So I'm going to break this up into 3 points that I think are just from my observation, years of experience of just witnessing how this seems to play out. It's fascinating to me. That's why I wanted to talk about it. I'd love to know your comments as well. So please let me know what you think also. So my 3 points that I have noticed have been this us versus them mindset that it's very, and that's honestly with anything, but I'm talking, new agers, practitioners, light workers, energy workers, aka witches. Okay, this us versus them idea, this ideology. And then there's the disbelief in science. That's point 2. It reaches a point where, the herbs, being vegan, crunchy lifestyle, holistic, that terminology, all of that sort of stuff, eventually sort of takes on a bigger presence in the witch's life. And I'm just going to say witch from this point, the witch's life. And that breeds something totally different. We'll just say that. And I'll explore that momentarily. And the next thing is conspiracy. Yes, conspiracy theories, or just being open without discernment to conspiracies. And ideally, you want to be open as a practitioner, as a spiritual person. However, there's a such thing as using your discernment. And if you're not familiar with how to use your discernment, or, because some of us, all of us, any of us honestly can be taken advantage of on some level. So, we'll break that down a little bit more. So let me get into it right now. So the us versus them ideology. Okay, so it's not leaving a lot of room for compassion for others. And honestly, that's going to be the one of the central themes you'll see momentarily once I get further into this conversation, is there's less empathy, less compassion for others when it's the us versus them. You ever notice, if you've seen those clips that's going around, viral clips, videos of when, a journalist goes to some sort of Trump gathering, and they approach people and they have this smug, knowing look, this smile on their face, like, I know something you don't know, and you're just sheep and you don't know any better. That sort of attitude where they're no longer receptive, because it's this us versus them mentality that they're working with. They don't see from other people's perspective anymore. There's a lack of empathy, and it's on full display when you see that. Here's the thing, as witches, yeah, you could look just like that as well. Talking about specific ideology, certain practices, where you also fall into the same category. And then once you're there, it's easy to sort of, for other ideology, or let me rephrase that, for this to sort of morph, this can turn into something else. But that's the first step. Once you're there, only you know the truth. Only you know the details of life, the secrets. All of the intricacies of what's really happening. That's a dangerous place to be. And it can lead directly into white supremacy, ideology, agenda, even as a person who is not white. You can be internalizing certain racist ideology, behaviors, sexism, and all of that sort of stuff once you get into this us versus them. So it's the same logic that leads to extremism within religion, quite frankly. It's the logic behind cults as well, us versus them. We know the truth. And again, it breeds a superiority complex like I mentioned, like you're the only one in the real know. You understand truth and we don't. The others are just sheep. um, which, if you hear conversations about, oh, we're all in the matrix, I want to escape the matrix, we're all in a simulation, you believe about the NPC, so you're real, you know the truth, and everybody else is an NPC. That's a gamer term. Or even the concept of star seeds. So once you're on that way of thinking, if you're not careful, you're not connecting to everyone else. Part of life is having a human experience, and part of human experience is actually connecting with other humans. So if you're thinking that people walking around are not real, that means, if they're not real, you can have some really effed up ideas about who they are, or, well, you don't think they're anyone. So therefore you can do or say whatever you want to these people. That's a playbook out of white supremacy. It's to create this us versus them attitude. Whiteness. We know whiteness is not even real. So when I'm using this terminology, know that I know that as well. What the concept of whiteness was created because at one point there were other groups who technically look quote unquote white were not considered white. Think of the Irish, think of Italians here in America when they came to this country. Initially they were not considered white, but we know, whiteness had to expand more into the concept of, non-blacks, essentially. Just anybody except for the black folk. All right, so that's us versus them ideology. It's a slippery slope, guys. The next thing is the disbelief in science. This one is really tough to watch, to be a part of. It hurts my soul, to be honest, because I see a lot of people making this mistake. Herbs cure everything. When I mean everything, I mean everything. Listen, I am someone who works with natural remedies myself. However, the one thing that I have found, and actually was actually supported by a very helpful doctor, and she backed me up and said, it's not that natural remedies don't work. No one said that natural remedies don't work. The issue is sometimes, depending on what your illness is, what your disease is, it may not be working in time to be effective for your situation. But here's the thing. Unless you are someone who is not just only a master herbalist, you would also have to be very in tune with biology and medicine as a whole in a modern sense to understand that. And a lot of us don't have that. Essentially a doctor or a nurse and experience. So you may not be versed in understanding that your issue is too far gone for what, if you had caught it in the beginning, yeah, but you're too far gone for that. Prime example, we know there are certain herbs and roots and things of that nature that can assist with lowering blood pressure. Well, if you've been experiencing elevated blood pressure for a certain period of time, unchecked, we're past the point of just, you can come into that, but you're going to need to get on some medication or you're at risk for a stroke. It takes time for the herbal remedies to work. You can end up, you either advising someone, you can kill them, you can put them into a dangerous state that has damage that may not be repairable, or for yourself, unfortunately. And where does this place as far as getting into the pipeline of, patriarchy, white supremacist agenda, and all of that sort of stuff is because if you're kind of on the mindset that herbs cure everything, you don't need to see a doctor, you're most likely anti-vax. Vegans play heavy into this because that lends into sort of a political agenda as well. And quite frankly, you get into this concept of pure. It starts with natural, it starts with organic, it starts with those marketing terms. And next thing you know, you're looking for what's pure. And once you're down the rabbit hole of talking about what's pure and purity, you are definitely on a fast track to accepting, identifying, and even supporting white supremacy and the agenda, even as a black person or a person of color. There's one other thing in this topic that I want to talk about, and that's folk magic and even radical wilding. I am all about wilding. I'm all about using folk magic. There is a balance, and a lot of folks who practice are not aware of that balance, not aware that if you're working with spirit, if you're working with roots and herbs and things of that nature, they can be of assistance and aid you, even replace some things, some modern things such as modern medicine. However, this idea that, and which is going to lead into the next thing on conspiracy, that there is this overall theme that is prevalent, that literally every entity, every organization, every product that is not of the earth, not organic, not made natural, is trying to kill you, is trying to hurt you, trying to harm you in some capacity, whether it's mind, body, or spirit. Now, I said it's a balance because we know that in this country, a lot of things that can kill us and cause cancer is allowed in our food supply, in our water. And that's where I'm speaking about a balance. Essentially, I'm going to say something controversial. You're not going to, if you live here, you can only run from it so far. You've already been exposed. It's in the air. It's in the air. It's the water we drink. It's the air that we breathe. It's the products that we wrap our bodies in, blankets, formaldehyde, all of that's on our furniture. Like, you're not to add more to it, but you're not going to escape it. And that doesn't mean do anything. Hey, be an activist. Get out there. Make, choices that is better for your health, especially if you're more sensitive to things. But you have to be mindful to watch that balance so that you're not trying to approach this from a purity point of view. And once you do, that goes right into that other thing. It's a slippery slope. I cannot express that enough. I've watched this happen in real time. It starts with just this disconnection from science. These are the people, eventually they start to believe about, medicine. They're walking away from modern medicine. They don't want to be treated. They don't take their children to be treated. Then it goes into the earth is flat. Yes, I'm being honest. The earth is flat. Nothing is real. There's a weather machine. The almighty they, the government, they have affected the weather. Nothing that is presented as scientific fact or has been proven through scientific theory. Theories are not just your thoughts, and that's a theory. Scientific theory is a different terminology from just what you personally, your opinion, you're theorizing. It's an educated theory. That's a different understanding, different terminology, to be honest. But if you are in disbelief of science, you're not even aware that there's such thing as educated or scientific theory, and you have confused that with opinion. You'll find that with people saying you have to do your own research. Yeah. Which goes into conspiracy theory. This is one of the ones where once you're there, it's difficult. It's very difficult to bring people out. Usually they have to come out on their own. One of the things that I've noticed just on a personal, because this is more personal observation, is that specifically with Black people in America, I noticed that there is a slippery slope to anti-Semitism, which, by the way, falls into what the white supremacy agenda is. This concept, the Jews rule everything, they have all the wealth, that ideology. I've heard that myself, and I've heard that from when I was a kid, to the grown-ups around me, family members and so forth. I have heard that, unfortunately. So what happens if you don't reconcile that and you're working, you're a practitioner, you're a spiritualist? Trust me, that comes into play. You have to be careful. I'll just say that. You have to reconcile that. Because that's where you hear these terms about Hollywood, and we have issues with, the lizard people, and it's a lot of anti-Semitism into that. And yeah, you need to be careful. Then there's another popular one, and I put this under conspiracy for a reason. Concept of femininity, masculinity, the coaching. I believe it leads to transphobia and homophobia because these absolutes can't survive in on spectrums of different of fluidity of sexuality and how that expresses itself and who gets to be feminine and how that comes into play. Another slippery slope. That's this one right now is a hot topic because it's, again, and this is not even just in the Black community, Black American community. I'm seeing people in different communities having these conversations, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, you guys got to be careful with this. Again, slippery slope, because you'll be. It's right out the playbook of white supremacy and patriarchy. Everyone. I mean, if you need help, I think, again, it's a balance thing. We can all take, concepts and some of the information that's being spoken about on what femininity is and what masculinity looks like and what you're attracted to. Again, with all of this, you need to do some shadow work, and that shadow work needs to be honest. You need to really probe and understand, where do you get this from? Where do you get the concept of femininity from? Where do you get the concept of masculinity from? And what does duality look like to you? Is it based on Christian ideology, Abrahamic religions? Is that where it's coming from? Because if that's where it's coming from, you need to do some more work, especially as a practicing witch. The other thing, which might not apply to witches, but witches who have been exposed to this type of thought, again, it carries over. And that's the whole Israelite thought process, which also was more into anti-Semitism as well. The blacks are really the Jews, that thought. So we're all of this put together. Again, the biggest impact of all of this, these 3 points that I've sort of outlined, is the lack of compassion and empathy for others. We have one extreme where they get so caught up in the earth and nature and animals, and that's more of the disbelief in science. There's this strong connection to Mother Earth, Gaia, energy, where it gets a little distorted. Not a little, it can get very distorted. Next thing you know, you're supporting Trump, for lack of a next thing you know what, those ideas, you kind of can, and I know it seems bizarre, because it seems bizarre to me. How can you go from being one with nature to supporting politicians and ideology that makes absolutely no sense because they become spiteful? There's this disconnect from reality, essentially, with all 3. But the biggest part is empathy for other people. I know the world can be crummy. I know that people can be very disappointing. But once you've accepted, the concept of NPCs, that people are not real, that are walking around, once you've accepted that, the purity culture, purity being, pure, everything is pure. And then you get into color theory on white and all of that sort of stuff. It's all part of white supremacy. By the way, if you believe that dressing in white, and that's why I talked about folk magic, if you believe in being white, to me, it's wrapped in purity. Listen, you could assign colors and ideology to whatever. That's your practice. That's your business. It gets tricky, guys. It gets very tricky if you don't understand the why behind things. Why do you think white is considered pure? Why do you think that is? Be willing to do that work. Be willing to uncover those thoughts. And of course, that us versus them breeds, superiority complex. And that alone could get you in this pipeline. So I'm hoping this is helpful. Just, food for thought, something to think about. You might be kind of adopting some of this ideology, these ways of thinking, without realizing it, and don't even see it coming. But if you're not careful, it's coming. So thanks so much for watching. Again, I'm Mika. This is Leap Taken. Please like, subscribe, share. Consider hitting that join button. That's a Patreon here on YouTube to support me. I'd really appreciate it. Check out my website, leaptaken.com. I'm on TikTok as well, and also IG. So, check out Leap Taken there as well. As always, I appreciate you all. Thanks so much for watching. Please comment. Let me know your thoughts. Bye-bye.